Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today, if you can't tell, we are talking about the Tactile knife company, Maverick, and I have the latest offering here as well as the initial offering. So we're going to talk about both of those. Before we get into all that though, I do want to just give a little quick shout out to Tactile Turn. That is the sort of the parent company. They started out making these pens, which are absolutely phenomenal. Not this particular pen, but these bolt action pens. This is the mid-size, the mini version, no, the medium version. There's a smaller one, there's a larger one. I do really like these, and that sort of is what put them on the radar, and for good reason. These are absolutely fantastic. Now, since that time, they've come out with a number of different knives. I've been able to take a look at most of those, largely thanks to Steve over at Thunderbird Gear. I would encourage you to go check them out. Um, Most of the Tactile Knife Company knives have not been, they all look nice. They're all well made. They've been in good materials, and a lot of people have really loved them. But most of them have been on the small side for me, so they didn't really suit my particular preferences. Now, these were a bit of a departure, and so when this came out, I was pretty excited to get my hands on it. Not to mention, I love this design, and that part I don't want to emphasize too much, because in fact I've really liked the design on most of the Tactile Knife Company offerings. It's mostly been the size that puts me off. However, these are what I would consider full size knives, so no issue whatsoever with these from that perspective in terms of blade length, in terms of grip area, absolutely fantastic. So just a quick rundown before we get into the rest of the video. There is one important distinction I'll make here, but the size on these, all of these are the same, 8 and 3/16 overall, 3.5 inches on the blade, 4 and 11/16 on the handle. So that's the overall length there. And for me, anytime you get a knife under 5 inches in the handle that has a 3.5 inch blade, that's doing pretty good. That's pretty laudable. The other big number here to notice is the grip area. They've gone with a really simple, clean handle here, and it does give you lots and lots of room. I've got size large hands, and you could see even if my hands were bigger than they are, I would still have plenty of space available. Okay. Um, and so really well done on the size here. Now, let me just say, this is not, okay, a hefty, hard use, overbuilt type of knife. It's more of an EDC style knife. This is not meant to be so much a tactical, hard use folder like a Recon 1 or something. Um, and so we're going to see some slight differences from that. In fact, what I think this probably compares well to in terms of, its place in the marketplace are the things from, Quiet Carry, which, by the way, I noticed came out with a 3.5 inch bladed knife recently. I think it's just a 3.5 inch drift. The other company that I would sort of put these in a similar wheelhouse would be TRM, right? They're low production, higher end stuff made in the US. Quality is a little better than your average, run of the mill production knife. Although there is one exception, we'll talk about that in a second. Let me mention one last point here. While we're looking at these side by side, I should point out that, as you can guess, okay, the titanium versus the G10 is a considerable, I guess not inconsiderable, difference in weight. So the titanium version up here comes in at 3.9 ounces, certainly not overly heavy, but it's not going to be as light as the G10, which is only 2.8 ounces. So really well done on reducing that weight a little further. You would almost consider this a really good competitor, although a more expensive one and a larger one, to the Benchmade bug out. Like, it's really lightweight, despite the fact that, by the way, it still has the full nested liners in there, which is certainly going to add some strength. And this is a pretty confidence inspiring knife. It feels, I don't feel a lot of flex. I don't feel a lot of movement when I hold it. Certainly, I don't get any from the titanium. Okay. But while we're talking about this brief little handle point, we'll come back and I'll do a little more detailed comparison. I will say this: being an EDC style knife, these are a little slight. Okay, so they're not super duper hand filling, like an 8010 or a Recon One might be. All right, just wanted to, kind of make sure that was clear that while I love the size of this, it's not a large, hard use tactical type knife. So it's not going to have that big beefy handle. It's more suited to EDC tasks. And for that, it is very comfortable. All right. Now, I want to point out here that when these first launched, these in particular, the G10, we'll come back to in a second. But when these first launched, there were some issues primarily with the action on these. It was, people were having a hard time. They had blade play. They had, just couldn't get the knife to be smooth and fast and open quickly and easily without, it was just a problem. So, and I think all of us kind of know the drill with knives like this. You're going to have to play with it a little bit. You're going to have to adjust it because there are no bearings in here. This is phosphor bronze washers. But people were, trying and trying and messing around with these and just couldn't get them to perform the way they wanted to. And that's a real problem. For a knife at this price point, things really need to be dialed in. It needs to be perfect. All right, now coming over to the G10 version, I have to say that these are really, really good. The action right out of the box, I haven't done anything to these. I've literally just opened them 2 seconds ago, are superb. Like they're absolutely fantastic. And so, and by the way, I've kind of tried to Google around and see what's going on out there. No one else has issues with the action on the G10 either. All right. Now, coming back to the initial run, um, after the first run was over, a number of people complained and they addressed the problems, and everything sort of second run and beyond has been very good. If you're kind of following this, you probably are already well aware, but I've talked to a number of people who have these, and everyone is very, very happy with the knife now that they kind of address those initial hiccups with the action. All right, so let's go ahead and work our way through this knife, talking about, what it has going on, what's good, what's bad, all of that stuff. Up front, we start with a really, really clean, simple MagnaCut blade. Yeah, MagnaCut is very good, and I've noticed the edge retention on this is absolutely fantastic. Now, it's a little bit of thinner blade stock than I tend to like, but again, this is an EDC knife. This is not, designed to be sort of some beefy, crazy giant thing. Okay. And so for EDC type uses, absolutely fantastic. No issues whatsoever. The blade grind is sort of a flat saber grind. The grind lines are really, really attractive on this, just nice and clean. Very thin behind the edge, making this slice exceptionally well. All right. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the blade on this. As we move down and we talk about the thumb stud and the action, this is on phosphor bronze washers, and the action is very good. And as most people are aware, when you have a phosphor bronze knife like this, if you've had any Benchmades or Spydercos or anything like that, they tend to get better and better over time. And certainly mine has done that. The other thing I want to notice is the crossbar lock is very nice. It's comfortable, it's easy to access, and so is the thumb stud. Now, the thumb stud I had some concerns about because it's sort of shaped. You can see that there, and I thought, is that going to be hard edges or something like that? But the way my thumb lands on it, no issues whatsoever. As you can see, the same kind of approach has been carried over on the G10 here. So again, no problems there. Now, they have done something that's really, really nice to see, and I hope we start seeing this on everything. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show it to you properly. Let's see, I've got a light here. Maybe I can. There you go. So notice that for the Omega spring, there are a couple of different holes so that you can adjust the spring tension on that spring, which is going to affect the detent and going to affect, how easily the crossbar actuates. All right. So I think that's a great feature, and it allows you to make appropriate adjustments to your particular uh, desire, right? Get it just the way you want it. Really nicely done on lockup and deployment now, barring the fact that there were some issues in that first run. Moving on now to the handle, we have, of course, titanium scales with titanium hardware. However, we do have a stainless steel liner in there. I did have a comment one time, someone on my initial video said, it says all of the hardware is titanium, therefore the liners are titanium. Well, no, first of all, that wouldn't make any sense. And two, it specifically says on Tactile Knife Company's website that the hardware is titanium, but the liners are stainless steel. Okay, and that, of course, is not the case for the G10. On the G10, we have G10 scales and still the stainless steel liners there. Okay, so of course, that's an obvious difference there. I do want to touch on the feel though, and I genuinely believe, Tactile Turn is known for their really nicely done titanium, and certainly this has a really good feel to it, and I really enjoy the traction that this provides. However, as virtually anyone watching this is going to be fully aware, G10 is quite grippy, and this really is very grippy G10. And so, it's the same pattern. It's just that in G10 material, it's just naturally going to be a little better traction. And so there is a difference in terms of how these feel in hand, with the G10 feeling a little more grippy compared to the titanium. All right, that's pretty well as you would expect. Again, you do notice, right, if you pick these two up, you definitely notice the difference in weight. All right. And as we already mentioned, the action on both is very, very enjoyable. Okay. Finally, let's touch briefly on the one thing that, I could see some people taking issue with, and that is the way this clip is done. I think they want it to be different, and they've done a good job of that. This is a really good, simple, but functional clip. I think it looks really good. But it is not reversible. Notice there's nothing milled on the show side to allow you to switch that over. Now, that's probably, that's a bit of a disappointment for me as a right-handed guy. I don't really care. But if you're a lefty and you're like, oh, crossbar lock is ambidextrous, that's great. It'd be nice to see that reversible clip. Well, no, you're not going to get that here. And I should have looked this up, but I didn't bother to look on the website whether there were left-handed options or not, where they were milled opposite. I'm not aware that there are. Okay, so I'd be happy to be corrected down in the comments. Let me know if that's a thing. But to my knowledge, this is probably going to be a little more appealing to the right-handed users, just because the clip is set up for right-hand tip-up carry, which is, I get it because that's how most people want to carry, but we should acknowledge there are some people who are left-handed. Okay, so I think we've covered most of the functions and features on this knife. I do want to throw in a couple of comparisons because I think that's important. First of all, the price point on these, again, as mentioned, these guys are around $350. These are like $269, I think, on Blade HQ. They might be more than that on Tactile Turns website. In Canada, these are all a little more. These are closer to $500. These are, I think, around $380, something like that. Yes, it sucks buying knives in Canada. The prices are absolutely horrendous, and I recommend against it in general. If you are going to do it, though, Thunderbird Gear, who sent these along, Huge thank you to them, and that would be a great place to go. You'll also get one of these little field notes books from them with I think with every order. I've never had anything come from them that didn't have a field notebook in it. So I suspect that that's always the case. But thunderbirdgear.ca again is where these came from, and that's where they're going to be going back to as soon as I'm done this video. All right. So let me bring in a couple of comparisons here. The A fairly obvious comparison because of its like clean, simple lines, because it's clean construction, would be the Sebenza. Either the 21 or the 31 would be most similar to the Maverick. I have it in Cosi here, which is not going to be the same. It's going to be a little more heavily built. But nonetheless, very clean, very simple knife, built in the USA to very close, tight tolerances. Are these guys reaching the same level of manufacture as these? Not quite exactly, but nonetheless, very, very good. Okay. Now, I want to throw in a knife that I think doesn't probably get enough attention here, and it's primarily just because of price point. Cold Steel Code 4. Now, this is the CTS XHP version, which is great, but aluminum scales, very thin, very EDCable knife, similar in size, similar in weight. The only difference here is this costs like $100, and you can find these guys on sale for 80. All right. You don't have to go with a Tanto. There's a drop point available. There's a clip point available. And so I think these make a very compelling offering. All right. We're not supposed to compare these things because the price is so different, right? And so there's sort of this unwritten rule that somehow goes on that a higher end knife shouldn't be compared to a lower end knife because it kind of lets the cat out of the bag. Okay, you can do something very similar for much less. All right, I love the Maverick. It's probably my favorite knife of 2023. Okay, but that is not to take anything away from something like this, which is really, really good. Okay, let me throw in a couple of other knives here. Paramilitary 2 is a pretty good comparison. And of course, there'd be a number of Benchmades. For me, because of the coloration and the design, the Crooked River is actually kind of close. Now, it'd be more probably akin to a mini Crooked River, but crossbar lock, phosphor bronze washers, similar sort of a clean, interesting design. Now, this is going to be more traditional with sort of that hunting style feel to it. Nonetheless, I think this makes a pretty compelling offering, as well as a number of other Benchmades that we could certainly put in here. Now, I do have the Riot Torrent that I want to throw in, and that's because if you like this clean, simple look, but you just want something a little more robust, this is a really, really good offering. The other reason I put this in here is because if this is something that you really appreciate, you like things that are heavier, bigger, bulkier, hand filling, that would be a sort of an area where, yeah, the Tactile turn is probably not the knife for you. By the way, while we're talking about thin G10 good quality knives, I think the American Lawman makes a pretty good comparison to the G10 version. The Benchmade Bug Out would be another comparable knife, as would be the Tag Out. I don't have examples of those to share with you. All right, so let's go ahead and get all these out. Man, that action is so good. All right. So here are all of the examples that I have available. Look, guys, overall, this is a really nice knife. I am very happy with the performance on this. I'm ecstatic about the edge retention. I've been carrying and using the titanium version of this for some time. I'm also really excited to be able to show you the new G10 versions and comment on those. A huge thank you to Thunderbird Gear for sending those along. That's fantastic, and it's been great to be able to just get to see them and feel them and kind of know a little bit about this new offering, as well as to share it with you. So what would I say about this knife? Is this a recommended knife, or is this, hold off and look for something else? Look, here's how I think this has to go. If you're a fan of like the TRM, the quiet carry, other small batch Microtech, other small batch high-end production knives, the Tactile knife company Maverick is perfect for you. All right, because you're used to paying a premium price for really good quality and a little extra attention to detail, barring again that little hiccup. If you're just looking for a good EDC knife, there are lots and lots of options that don't cost this amount of money that are as good, that will do everything you need to do. The Kaiser Escort comes to mind, one of my favorite knives. The American Lawman comes to mind. The Code 4 that I just showed you comes to mind. A lot of knives from Kershaw. The Kershaw Iridium is very good. I mean, it's got to be the best Kershaw that has come out in a while. So there are other options available if that price point is a problem for you. In fact, there are tons of really good options, and that's going to be the case with nearly any higher end knife. All right, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please check those channel sponsors, DLT Trading, White Mountain Knives, Thunderbird Gear for sending these along. And I will link all of those in the description, as well as, anyway, I think I've got an Amazon link. I got a couple other links in the description. Please check those out. Take advantage of those. Sometimes you're saving a little bit of money. Sometimes you're just supporting the channel. Either way, it's very greatly appreciated. We will talk to you soon.